And nice to see you again, man. We the last time we talked was before the world ended.
Yeah, yep. Um, I'm gonna put my ear thing in so that the audio is a little better.
Yeah.
And then is it working correctly?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think everything's good.
okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely, what was it, like 2019 or something, probably.
Yeah, I think it was 18 or 19, definitely before
Something.
everything went down. So it's good to see you
Yeah.
again. Good to catch up with you. I appreciate you taking a minute out today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I mean, I appreciated the text on Instagram too. It was
You
nice.
know, I tell you what, and it's one of those things where, I get albums all the time in the mail and there's so
Sure.
much good artwork. And that's been kind of the hallmark of jazz albums is that just even back to the Verve Blue Note days, it was so hip, so dripping with hip. And I get some of these in just for context for those that probably it's maybe blurring my everything's
Yeah.
disappearing. But so this is an actual book and AftEarth is the name of it and it's really attractive, great drawings. It's such a good idea to like maybe it's just because I come from that era and I'm tactile and I love books and music, but to have both of those together makes sense. So it's such a great way to package everything. How did it come about?
Yeah, I appreciate all the kind words. Thanks. Well, it was a long, arduous process for sure. And I 100% am with you. I mean, maybe it's an old guy thing a little bit, but just like I kind of miss the tactile part of listening to music where there's like a physical thing. You see it, you touch it, you read it, and like you have to like do a physical thing, like put it on a player, whether it's, so most of us, I think, have like some kind of record player nowadays. Or maybe not most of us, but a lot of us. But there's like something to that whole process, and like you share it with friends, and they share stuff with you, and there's this, a lot of the soul, if you will, is kind of taken out of music, not just jazz, but music in general, by everything being at the touch of a button on your phone anywhere you are at all times. So I don't know. I kind of wanted to go back to something where someone had to like hold it. They don't have to. Obviously, it's available streaming, because of course it is, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, that we did want to have some other sensory experiences with the consumption of the product. So I mean, I was originally drawn to this, no pun intended, drawn to this collaboration because of Tina's drawings. Tina and I have known each other for a long time, and I've always known that she was an artist, but I hadn't experienced a lot of her work until I went to a local place that has jazz, and it's a wine bar, and she had more or less what you would call a show or like a gallery showing at the wine bar. There was a bunch of her work up, and I was really drawn toward it. Just it very evocative, and but like in a very unique way. And so I don't know. I could go on and on about how it all started, but I'm with you on the physical product being a part of the process for how we enjoy music.
So I guess that's my question. This isn't just standard, you know, like artwork for the cover. This is a whole book. And how did you
Yeah.
orchestrate the music that you were making with the artwork that she had? Because obviously it had to come together and have a narrative and a beginning and an ending. How did that happen?
Yeah. So it was a collaborative process from the beginning. She and I got together and we talked about how we could work together, kicked around a couple of different ideas. Then we finally landed on this idea of like had some common themes that we wanted to like explore with her artwork. And once we decided on those themes, then she would draw what we called a seed drawing, just like one image for each of the themes. So then I got a picture and a theme, and then I went to work composing the music. And then once the music was composed with the seed drawing and the theme, then we rehearsed with the band and recorded, and breathed life into it with the improvisation and rehearsal process and all that. And then she got the work back, and she was actually at rehearsals and stuff too, so she could take part in the process. But once she got all the music for each theme and seed drawing, then she would draw more drawings. And then from the drawings, so like let's say there were 6 drawings for a tune like AftEarth or something like that. Um, then she took those drawings and she wanted to explore some basic animation stuff. So she made videos that fit the length of the song that had some animation in it. The pictures, began to move. So, um, and those, so yeah, this thing is like a book, and it's an album. So animated videos, and you can experience any of those any way you like. So
You,
it
you
became
know,
kind of a multimedia thing, if you will.
yeah, for sure. Well, and that's the one thing I think that's interesting about this art and the way it all flows and the titles is that, we're coming out of this pandemic. We've all been
Mhm.
rearranged by it in its own way. This almost seems kind of like a paying homage to a certain degree to what we've all gone through. I mean, you got titles like The American Scream, The Natal Dream Looks Like Trump. And then, you got all kinds of
Mhm.
imagery and things that are going into this. How much of living through this pandemic
Mhm.
as an artist and coming out of it was kind of the bedrock for the way this was orchestrated and ultimately delivered?
Mhm. Yeah, it started before the pandemic, maybe just the initial rumblings of some kind of like scary disease in China. Definitely hadn't reached the United States officially when we started um, thinking about this stuff, but the entire continent of Australia was on fire at this time when we came
Yeah.
to it. So like, and and the song of the Venetian gondolier on this, that imagery, that theme was that like Venice is underwater now because of climate change, not completely, but like they're starting to really freak out in Venice, one of the great cities of the world, because of climate disaster. So climate was like part of it to start, and also, but then, the pandemic did happen, and then other topics seemed to emerge. It, it was a collaborative process coming up with this stuff. But yeah, there was some stuff from the pandemic that emerges as themes and imagery and sounds. And one thing that Tina and I didn't want to do was like lecture people or like hit people over the head with this stuff. Our intent, and I'm not sure how successful we've been, but our intent was to have people like ask more questions than for us to like answer, or it was we didn't want it to be some kind of sermon or something like that. It was more just like is this what we're seeing? Are you guys seeing this too? Kind of thing. Um, but yeah, the original name for the American Scream was Toilet Paper Tower, uh, and because that was something that definitely happened early on in the pandemic, is people freaking out and hoarding toilet paper, which was totally unnecessary. Um, and yeah, so the pandemic definitely plays a role in the art that came out of this.
Yeah, what a failed exercise in groupthink right there that was with toilet paper.
Mhm.
I was listening to something the other day and they were talking about the story of how the Proud Boys began. It was a radio prank. No one's really
Yeah,
even known why the hell it became a conservative movement. It's so weird
right.
how
Mhm.
you go back to the beginnings of things and how they happen and how befuddling it is that it turns into the tsunami that's unexpected. It's very, very strange. Um, yeah, and I think it's interesting what you said there. It reminds me of kind of the way David Lynch does his stuff. He never really comes right out with anything. He always presents this canvas that he puts stuff on, but never explains why. He's like the ultimate cat that just always has something to make you think about, but will never talk to you about it, you know?
I
It's
I
wild.
love that. Thank you. And he is one of my favorite filmmakers. So that's a awesome way that you described kind of like how I experience his films as well. One thing I would say is that, um, yeah, everything we did was just like that. I would say, like more subtle. We don't want to tell you what it is. Whatever you think it is what it is. In fact, you mentioned a picture of Trump in there. It's like it's pretty clearly a picture of Trump, right? But it's like he's a mountain and there's like a tree growing out of his head. But then he's also got like some kind of oxygen mask attached to his mouth, and that's attached to the world. And I, I always saw it as him breathing into the world, like him and kind of like I guess I'm gonna go here. Him and kind of infecting the world with his breath or speech or whatever. But to when Tina, she's like, "Oh, that's interesting. You saw it that way." Like I thought of him as like sucking the energy out of the world, and it's like I guess I could see it both ways, and I want anyone to see it however way they see it, and that's the same with like the whole book, and hear it too, like whatever people are hearing, that's good for them. Like I'm not here to tell you what it is. I would like for you to figure it out for yourself, asking questions. I don't have the answers.
Yeah. Well, the one component is the art, the other is the music. What are you ultimately hoping people get from the music?
Yeah. Well, whatever they want from getting to the music. What I could tell a little bit about the compositional style, or why I chose these musicians, or I mean, the way I wrote the music to the art was to be colorful, because Tina's artwork is black and white. It is, monochromatic. It doesn't. It's a landscape devoid of people, and that was intentional, and of color. So I wanted to provide the color, and even at times provide the people. Like there's a voice on the second track, and so that was like sort of my concept with the sound of it. Yeah, and there's a lot of like post production effects and like a lot of swirling guitar effects and saxophone effects. So I wanted color. Um, there's electric bass, like heavily distorted at one point. So I was, the French word timbre, meaning tone, color, whatever. I was going for that, like trying to explore color to color in Tina's monochromatic drawings. Um, so maybe that's a decent answer for what you asked. What I want people to get, I want people to see the color while they look at the black and white.
So this has to feel good now that we're coming out of this pandemic, the world's waking up, live music's happening. How does it feel to like reemerge with this project, especially with as good as it is? What does that mean for you?
Well, thank you again. That's nice. I'm just so happy that it's over. It's not. I mean, it sort of is over. It out there. People, I hope, will continue to enjoy it or see it as a reflection of our times or whatever. But it was grueling getting to the end here, because of its origins. Like, this was funded in part by a grant from the Regional Arts and Culture Council here in Multnomah County. And, the first time I applied for it, they said no. They had some changes. Then they said yes. And then, like, next week was March 13th when it all shut down. So then it was like, well, crap, what are we gonna do? I have this jazz quartet thing where I can't even like be in the same room as my musicians that I know and love. Then like then summer months come and we can be outside together here in Portland. And it takes a while for us to be able to go outside, especially with electronic instruments. And then, that worked for a couple rehearsals or whatever, but then the weather cooled back down and started raining all the time again. So then we tried to like do the indoor social distancing thing, but some of the band members had differing ideas about that because, of course, right? Like everyone kind of dealt with this stuff that the government told us to do in different ways. And it ended up actually causing a rift within the ensemble. So now I'm basically without a bass player in the middle of this project that I've already put time and money into. So we had to like find a new bass player and then start the rehearsal process over again. And then then go into a studio, and then we go into the studio during record-breaking heat in the Pacific Northwest. It was 116 degrees in
Wow.
Portland, Oregon. That doesn't make any sense,
No.
so it's like all of this is like, yeah, and while we're playing a song that's like kind of hinting at climate change,
Yeah,
um, and then just more and more stuff piling on top of each other, and to like, when is this thing actually going to happen? And now it's out. So yes, I'm quite relieved that we made it to the finish line with
that's
this.
wonderful.
It should have been done in 2020.
Yeah,
Honestly,
right.
yeah.
So should a lot of things for sure. So it's triumphant to see that the phoenix has risen. So
Yeah.
what tell me a little bit about things is, we do get into the warm months, live music, anything, the best place for someone to pick up a physical copy of this, just kind of give me a rundown a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. I don't have any more performance plans for this currently booked. But I imagine maybe we'll play this stuff again. It's difficult music, so it kind of requires rehearsal before we play. Playing along with the recording quite isn't quite enough because it's difficult music. But I hope people enjoy it, not for the difficulty of it, but for the whatever. Um,
Hmm.
and so I don't have many plans to play it live, but yeah, it is available in physical copy if you want to get the 62-page 7 by 7 coffee table book, more or less, that has a CD inside it. Um, then you can go to Bandcamp and get it there, and give people a link or whatever. It's available to listen to on Spotify, but you won't see the artwork. And if people want to check out the videos, they are on YouTube. I think you could just like search, and it's also on my website. Uh, it's embedded to watch AftEarth on my website.
I'll put links on my show notes too to make sure that it's all good and it's all in there. So,
Okay, cool.
well, cool. Ryan, this is great, man. Thank you so much for, it's so great to get this. It's so great to see musicians are back at it. Great to catch up with you. Thanks for taking a minute out.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely.